of growing a company. A lot of CEOs put themselves out of a job. But I have a contingency plan. Because honestly, I'm not sure how successful I'm going to be in running a public company. I'm a New Mexican. I'm a northern New Mexican. And I cannot stand the thought of a scrawny 24-year-old analyst, 23-year-old analyst, fresh out of Harvard, questioning what I'm doing. And this happens. It's life. So I hope I can control my temper and this chip on my shoulder. But my contingency plan is I created 2 different portfolios. The first company is American Property Management Company. That's the battleship. That will always be private. It will always be our company. This new fund, I've used and created another company, American Property Hospitality Management. And that's the company we will take public. And I'm sure I'll have to sign up to run that company for 6 months to 2 years, probably 2 years. And then we'll see if my board of directors, now I'll have to answer to a board of directors, will tolerate me. Or if I hit the wrong cycle, they'll think that I no longer have the skills because we hit a down cycle. But if I leave or if they chase me out of that company, I go back to American Property Management Corp., which is still in existence, still thriving, and I plan to run that company until I'm dead. So why go through all of this to grow a company? For the small business people that may be in the audience who have aspirations, ambitions to grow a company, I do want you to ask that question, because I shared with you my story, and I bet it's not so unusual. I bet all of these elements that have to be in alignment in your company as well. But you do need to ask yourself, why go through all of this just to put yourself out of a job? Well, yes, you make money, but you may have to leave the company you dearly love. And it's the people. In my case, the answer is, why grow a company? I cannot help myself. I've been this way, I've been ambitious since I was a boy. I'm not going to change. I'm never satisfied. And I'm a proud graduate of Paul D. Henry Elementary School in Las Vegas, Memorial Middle School, St. Michael's High School, and the University of New Mexico. I still have something to prove. I have to prove that I can compete in an international level, a national level, against the best and beat them with New Mexicans. So it's in a way a sickness. It's a chip on your shoulder that you just cannot get rid of. And those of you who are from Las Vegas, Santa Fe, northern New Mexico, you know what I'm talking about. You're edgy. You're tough. You're mean. And once you tasted some success, you want more. So I cannot help myself. But for those of you who do not have this sickness and who do not have this chip on their shoulder and always feel they have to prove something, ask yourself whether or not you want to grow your company and go through all of this to go full circle. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Most of all, thank you for your support, because so many of you are part of what I and we have done. And without you, I could not have done it. This has never been a one-man show. It's always been a team. When I was selected National Entrepreneur of the Year in 2004, I was embarrassed, because I surrounded myself with all these people who were more talented, smarter, taller, and better looking than I was. And yet I got all the credit. And I was in shock that I was selected, because most of the time, people in their late 60s, 70s, and even their 80s got selected for that honor as the pinnacle of their career. What I did the next morning is I went to this booth that they had, and I bought every cap, every shirt, I cleaned them out. Every pin, every plaque that said Team Member, National Entrepreneur of the Year 2004. And I gave all of those jackets, caps, hats to my team. That's the only way I could accept it. Because once again, I'm this little boy who grew up in a large family, and it was one for all for one. So that's my story. Thank you.
So we'd like to take a minute to do some Q&A. I just want to remind you that we do have a survey on your seat, and if you could just take a minute at the conclusion of this to do that, that would help us going forward. Saul?
First of all, I think this is hilarious. And here's why. Because since I was always working, even in high school, since junior high, high school, college, I never made good grades. And so I want to make good grades for once. I was a terrible student. I was lucky this fine university graduated me.
We have a microphone here if anybody would like to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
What's your strategy for determining which hotel you're going to go after? What markets, what are the things you're looking for when you choose a location?
That's a good question, because it's so complicated. What we're doing now is we're focused on major markets, secondary markets. Now let me define those. Major markets are New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Miami, Chicago, Mexico City, Cancun. Secondary markets are Denver, Phoenix, San Antonio, Dallas. Albuquerque, we're called a tertiary market, third-tier market. So our strategy, because I have so much institutional funds behind me, I need to focus on the very high-end, very expensive 4- and 5-star hotels in major markets, secondary markets, and prominent resort locations. That has not stopped me from reinvesting in Albuquerque, because in the last few years we bought the Radisson. We poured $22 million into it. We're building this water park. The old Four Seasons, it's going to come alive. It's already pretty. Wait until that water park's open. We bought the DoubleTree downtown. We just finished renovating it. And the New York firm that owned it never put a penny into it. You should see it now. It is gorgeous. And we recently bought the Wyndham at the airport, and we're going to renovate that and position that as a 4-star hotel as well. So other than Albuquerque, we're very focused on these major markets. Why? Not just because institutional funds want institutional assets, it's because they hold up the best. And they're the most liquid to trade. It's pretty easy to sell an asset in San Francisco, San Diego, etc., where it's a lot more difficult to sell an asset in Canton. So Patricia could be there a while. Mama. Any other questions?
Mr. Gallegos, what was your strategy to accumulate the cash?
Not spend. You would not believe the car I was driving in the early days. When I would go see a banker, when I'd go see Michelle, I'd park my car like half a block down the street because it was not a good representation. And so much of what you do is show. And I was afraid if I showed the banker this horrible car I was driving, that they would think I'm not successful. You remember, I learned in the parking lot, you have to dress for success in order to advance. And so we just lived very humbly for years and years and years. We did not increase our standard of living. Our big day came when my partner and I got matching Ford Tauruses. That was with air conditioning. That was big. And it's hard to do because you have sacrificed for so long that once you get some success, you want to increase your standard of living. You want a better home, you want better clothes, you want to take a vacation, and you want a better car. During the early days, I cannot tell you how many girlfriends I lost because I would not take them out to dinner. And then if I did in that old beat-up car, they never thought I was going to be successful. So.
Mr. Gallegos, can you comment on your reading habits, both kind of the variety of things you read and how much?
Good question. I read, when I get to the office, every trade publication I can get my hands on. I need to know what's going on in my industry. I used to be able to devour U.S. News and World Report, the New Yorker, New York Times, and now I'm so focused on all these hotel-related trade papers and magazines. In the morning, I barely get through the sports section before my daughters wake up, and they never stop talking. And so I'm having breakfast with them, and I just give it up and listen to them. So I get through half of the San Diego Union Tribune, and then I get online to see what's going on in New Mexico. So I'm glad for online. So it's really a splattering of everything. I have a stack of Newsweeks stacked up. So I cannot remember the last time I read a book. I can, and I read it twice. It's my favorite book recently, and that was by Tom Brokaw, The Greatest Generation. I love that generation. I love that book, and I love that generation because of their sacrifice for this country. They survived the tail end of World War I. They survived the Great Depression, the banking collapse, World War II. They knew about sacrifice. And I think so many people have, especially this generation, has no concept of sacrifice for this country and how this country got to be so great. So I love Tom Brokaw's book. So I read that twice a few years ago, gave it to my father-in-law because I thought he would enjoy it as well.
A question here, and then we'll go back there.
Yeah, it's very common, I think, to have ownership of hotels separate from the management of those hotels. How did your organization deal with that? It sounds from what you're saying that you manage the hotels you buy.
That's correct. We're a little different from the trend in the industry. The big hotel companies like Marriott, Hilton, Starwood, Host, they're selling off assets and retaining franchises and management because they like that fee income, which is cleaner and less risky than the real estate component. We have focused our business on owning and operating. We do very little third-party management. And quite honestly, we think we're very talented, very good at what we do, and we'd rather make money for ourselves than do third-party management contracts and divert our attention or resources. I'd rather send, I keep picking on her, Patricia, to one of my hotels than to a third-party hotel. I'm very honest about it. I want her to make money for me and for my partners.
45 hotels must really test your span of control. Can you comment upon it, how you can keep control of such a wide, diverse empire?
I only now focus on problems that have liability. If there's a fire, if there's a slip and fall, at our hotel in Tallahassee a couple of years ago, there was this guest. He was a bully. We have some guests that sometimes are not so nice. And he kept poking his hand into the chest of our front desk manager, chewing him out. He was mad about something. Front desk manager asked him to stop it several times. He would not stop it. He kept belittling him, pounding on his chest. Finally, my front desk manager, God bless him, he did the wrong thing. He climbed over the front desk and beat the heck out of that guest. So I get called immediately saying, John just beat the heck out of a guest. I said, why did John do that? And they tell the story, and I said, God, I've been there because I used to be a front desk manager, and I remember that guest. But I had to fire John. And then we countersued the guest for assaulting our employee. We did not lose that suit. So I get calls anytime there are those types of incidents. People go to hotels to commit suicide. It's sad. The women, I get those calls. The women who go to hotels to commit suicide, they'll do it in the tub, or they'll put plastic all over the beds and all over the carpet. They do not want their families finding them. My poor maids, my poor housekeepers, they walk in. We see it all in the hotel business. I probably should not have shared that story. It's such a dimmer on the evening, but I get those calls because I want to make sure they're handled correctly. I focus on acquisitions. I focus on meetings with lenders, meetings with partners, and I just trust a lot of talented people that we've trained, we've groomed, and we believe in to handle the rest. I had to let go. And being an entrepreneur, that's one of the toughest challenges you have. You have to let go. That's why you have to have people around you you trust that you know are capable.
Who is your toughest competitor? Why are they your toughest competitors?
I'm going to say this nicely. I do not like HEI. A lot of you have never heard of HEI. Cornell graduates, they've always had all the money from all the institutions. They outbid me even today, every darn time I compete against them, because they have all the money. HEI has their own private equity fund. They just got another $400 million, so now they're flush with around $600 million. And every time I think I have a hotel won, HEI comes in and ups the price $5 million, $3 million, $8 million. And I'm too disciplined. I'll let it go because I think it becomes marginal at that point. And so HEI is my toughest competitor. They're flush with cash. They have a very decent organization, and they're all Cornellians, so they're all very smart guys. Wish I could compete against them on a level playing field.
Jim Collins was in town just 2 weeks ago to promote his book, Good to Great. And I suspect a lot of folks in this room had an opportunity to hear Jim. And one of the basic fundamentals of Jim's thinking is about, sort of validates what you said, which is about who's on the bus. And so I'm wondering if you've got a chance to read his book, Good to Great, and whether some of what you've adopted as part of your corporate culture has any relationship with it.
Unfortunately, back to your question, I've not had a chance to read his book, and I'm not familiar with it. I'm really remiss in not being able to read as many books as I'd like. Early in the morning, I wake up at 4:30 to 5 every morning, and my fax machine has been humming. I get all my daily reports from every hotel, and I'm reviewing how we did the night before. So I do that for the first hour and a half before I start in on preparing breakfast. So I'm reading too much hotel stuff.
He will validate a lot of what you're saying, which is invest in the people and then determine your direction.
Thank God, because that's contrary to so many. And he's from Stanford. A lot of big people come from Stanford. I have family members that graduated from Stanford. I'm very proud of them. I'm just glad to hear that because so many corporations do not have that attitude. And you know what? It sets us apart. That does give me a competitive edge against guys like HEI. I think I have a much more loyal, dedicated group of people than they'll ever have.
One last question, Glenn.
Gallegos, you mentioned earlier some great nuggets I think about. Your first properties you purchased and great returns you made on them. It sounds like to me you kind of have the philosophy of making money when you buy or buying them right. Do you continue to try to incorporate that philosophy in acquiring, for instance, the $700 million worth of assets last year? Is that a tough thing to keep discipline and follow?
It is. We made most of our money on the C-class assets, the Comfort Inns, the small Radissons, the Days Inns. You know, a B asset would be going up the food chain like a DoubleTree. But now, because of where most of my money comes from, I have to focus on the A-class assets, the really nice Hiltons, the nice Sheratons, the nice Le Meridians, Westins. So I've had to abandon that philosophy and get the institutional grade assets, and those do not come cheap, and they're a little more challenging to make money on them. But that's the direction I've had to take the company. What I'd like to do now is ask for your indulgence. I'd like all of my current and former team members, my team, to stand up. Mr. Silva, I see you. Please stand up. There's Chris. I'd like to thank all of these tremendously talented people. The next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to ask all of my family members. And by the way, when we get together for Christmas, there are 99 of us now. We have our own tribe. So I'd like to have all of my family members stand up, even if you already stood up because you're working with the family company. So I'd like all my family members to stand up. Thank you for being here. And that was a quiz. I'm a little sore at the team members who did not stand up when I asked my family members to stand up, because they're all supposed to be family.
You don't have a chance.
I'd like my former classmates to stand up, because I have some good friends in the audience that were classmates with me. Thank you for being here. I did not see in that. And I'd like my former teachers, administrators from the University of New Mexico who invested in me and who believed in me to stand up, because there are some of those in the audience as well. Ralph? And I'm finally going to acknowledge my good friend, and when I was student body president, he was my vice president. He was very loyal and dedicated to me, and I've always been loyal and dedicated to him as well. Dan Serrano, he's in the background. Hi, Dan.
Michael, on behalf of the University of New Mexico, the Anderson School, I'd like to present you with something that we hope you will be wearing when you meet those Cornellians next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you again. Thank you.
And Ernest asked me that we can show them what we're talking
Oh,
about.
wonderful.
You can't take development officer out of Ernest.
Ernest does a good job, too. All right. University of New Mexico, Anderson School of Management, works. There's more. I have my cherry and silver Lobo cup. You should see the Lobo stuff I have in my office. And, well,
Did you give him one without a
That was a trick box.
you know, I know we've had budget cuts, but you do not have to get my hopes up.
I'm sure he'll fix that.
It's part of being a New Mexican. We do with what we have.
Please help me thank Mr. Michael Gallegos.